So we're going to go ahead and get started. For everyone online, we appreciate you joining in. And for those of you who are watching it recorded, we appreciate you watching as well. Thanks for coming out today. We know with COVID and the rental cars, it was quite a stress for people to come out to West Virginia. So we moved the event here. China's done a great job at keeping up with that. My name is Ron Brawner. For those of you who don't know me, I own Brawner Group, and we are putting on this event specifically to discuss both the aviation use of Canine and the use of Canine in other industrial or commercial uses. And we'll get into those as we move throughout the day. So thank you, everyone. And this is Joanna. She'll be taking care of the rest of the day for you.
Good afternoon, and thank you for all of our in-person and virtual participants in today's Canine Capabilities event. From the time that man and canine came to know one another, their reciprocal dependency for security has led to great strides in our evolution. Continuing from ancient sheep herders, modern-day entrepreneurs continue to harness our natural companions to solve the problems of our modern world. There are accelerate detection canines used by statewide insurance to mitigate insurance fraud in cases of suspected arson. Canine teams probe our oil pipelines daily to prevent environmental catastrophes in America's heartland. Even sweet Cocker Spaniels sniff barrels in Scotland to make sure that your 18-year-old Scotch is just right. I could list much more, but I know that there are others eager to talk to you. The use of canines for modern problems are endless. Our furry friend's sense of smell is more than 10,000 times that of our own, and the dog whisperers among us have applied individual ingenuity to harness that capability, reinforced by our natural companionship. These solutions are not only time-tested, they are green, utilizing only food, water, and cuddles to meet our security and imbibing needs. Intricate networks of sensors along thousands of miles of pipelines and the massive ETD and X-ray machines used to meet the compliance standards of air cargo screening use vast amounts of energy. The need for energy-consuming technology in our society will never be obsolete, but we can make smart green choices to reduce our carbon footprint. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you again for coming today. We will hear two presentations for canine companies presenting some pretty innovative capabilities, followed by two panel groups on the strategies and challenges of the International Civil Aviation Organization's impending June 30th deadline. And finally, a presentation by SOC on the canine applications for aviation beyond the TSA's 3P Canine program. So I'd like to introduce the Global Canine Protection Group on their presentation for COVID screening canines.
Good afternoon, everyone. Great, so thank you for all coming and attending here and online. My name is Mike Larkin. I work for Global Canine Protection Group. I'm the Vice President of Commercial Services. And I'm here today to talk to you about a really fascinating topic. I have spent, I've had the good fortune, I guess, to spend the last few months, starting back in December, immersed in canine screening for COVID detection, and had the opportunity to really dive into the process, understand it, and now have been invited to talk about it here today. So before we get into that, I'd like to talk a little bit about who we are. Who we are is Global Canine Protection Group. Obviously, being a 30-year veteran of the United States Marine Corps myself, I'm happy to be part of Global Canine Protection Group. We are veteran-owned and veteran-operated business. We look at delivering sustainable canine solutions, not only in the cargo industry, but in the commercial industry as well, sports, entertainment, technology. which is really where I spend a majority of my time. So again, I'm happy to be here with you all today to talk about this. Global Canine Solutions was really formed in 2016, but in 2018, we focused our effort on the CCSP Canine program. Currently, we have the largest number of teams in the CCSP program and the second largest company in the country that doing explosive detection work, mitigation strategies across the board, whether that's in cargo operations and commercial services. And then really at the heart of our organization, we're a technology company. So we're going to talk a lot about technology this morning, and we're going to really do that focus specifically on how technology applies in the canine COVID detection work. So let's talk a little bit about what I refer to as the science behind the sniff. And that's really in a responsible global pandemic over the past several months. Many of you have either participated in, seen, read, doing research on COVID canine detection screening around the world. So I'm sure everybody's read the research studies in the UK, Dubai, here in the United States. But SARS-CoV-2, right, that's the COVID virus itself. That research and development led us to a safe-to-use training aid, and we'll talk about that training aid and its uses to imprint canines and then deploy them and sustain their training in the field in a safe manner. Now, if you've read the research, you understand that the canine COVID detection has kind of taken two paths, right? So the first path that you see a lot of research on is indirect person screening. That means either you've seen the UK study where they're either taking a sweat sample, a swab under the armpits or behind the ears and neck, and then they're taking that sample remotely going to a back room or a controlled screening area and then doing testing on that particular sample. The second side, and the side we chose to move towards, is in the direct contact of screening for the virus with the person. And again, there's a lot of information online that talks about the differences between the two, what each methodology is trying to capture. The fascinating part about screening people directly based on a viral makeup of proteins that make up the SARS-CoV-2 virus is that you can have an immediate screening response. So the idea behind an immediate screening response is having the ability to focus on triage, screening for triage, right? We talk a lot in the COVID canine screening industry about, okay, is the dog a diagnostic tool or is the dog a screening tool? And I think everyone would agree and understand that a dog is a screening tool. I always talk with people and say, if a dog could talk and drive himself to work, they would probably not even need a handler. But because they can't, and because they can't communicate that, we need to understand that the utilization of a canine is specific to screening for SARS-CoV-2 is around initial triage screening. And where that comes from is that's led us to our mission, right? Our mission here at Global Canine is really looking to be an international innovator, a developer, a provider of these resources, and more importantly, a provider of the technology as a detection solution. The thought leadership centering around pandemic and now as we sort of transition into a post-pandemic, whether that's cargo or commercial services, that ecosystem that lives around those industries, we need to take a look at how we're utilizing a dog and what are their capacities, especially specific to the post-pandemic footprint. What is it going to look like? And I think that's what people are most interested about when we start talking about using canines for the screening and triage of COVID-19 for detection purposes. To provide a triage solution, that really is, like I said earlier, that's across, depending on where you are in the philosophy, the research, And if you're tracking all of these different studies, a lot of different agencies are trying a lot of different, going through a lot of different processes to find the right solution. We believe we found that solution. We believe canines are an excellent mobile detection system. That system, though, does require innovation, right? Innovative methods, especially in this new operational space. So detection work for all types of explosive detection and detection dogs follows a pretty traditional methodology. COVID-19 dogs follow that same methodology in a lot of ways, but they're using new training aids and new processes to allow a dog to be able to not only be trained and imprinted, but then operationally function in all of our different footprints and business ecosystems across the world. That screening is centered around initial human body screening for triage. That's the critical component that I want to talk about today when we talk about this solution, and I want to share with you where that really comes from. So that comes from guidelines and technology systems in the screening space. Specifically, if you've done research on COVID-19 canines, the CDC has not put out specific recommendations on the use of a dog in screening. And I'll tell you where that comes from. It comes from viewing the dog as a bioscreening tool and a technology. And so that's where we've incorporated this philosophy around using the dog as an initial triage for screening. So I've spent a lot of time in these three different agencies, reviewing policies, procedures, and I can tell you from a recommendation standpoint, here's what I found to be the most important. What I found to be the most important is looking at the COVID screening technology and looking at as the dog as a biotechnology sensor tool, right? We're focused on initial human body screening for triage. And what I mean by initial human body screening for triage is the dogs have a direct contact with a person at nose level. Traditionally, we are training dogs to sniff a person's hand, right? The body sheds virus constantly. Your body constantly sheds. That odor, that protein combination can be identified and isolated and then imprinted on a dog for detection purposes. The advantage of using a canine in this particular aspect and in this deployment strategy is really about throughput, right? So that's the challenge with COVID-19 canines. It's the same challenge we see in cargo canine screening. It's the same challenge we see in commercial operations with explosive mitigation strategies, firearm detection, you name it. The dogs can move efficiently and quickly through a screening scenario. And in the same way for COVID-19 canines, that triage methodology is designed to be fast and efficient. With that, the teams are using initial screening as a triage tool and to mitigate risk, right? So we talked a lot about this when we started our program with the Miami Heat, and we were working 10 dogs there with folks coming in and screening every day. We talked about a triage strategy, right? A triage tool used in concert with masks, social distancing, rapid testing. A layered approach was the idea behind using a dog. In the same way, we have other technologies in the cargo screening side, X-ray, trace, hand search, canines. We had to have the ability to look at canines as a triage screening tool. Part of that is a larger risk mitigation strategy that's really about not replacing PCR testing or rapid testing of any type. It's really used as a triage tool, not to replace, but to really quickly identify those folks or those workers coming to work or standing in line or wherever we're using this triage screening technology to mitigate the risk and then provide that person with a list of strategies to go be tested, go see their doctor, go seek medical attention. Those things are all critical to that philosophy and that discussion around triage screening. Some key words to think about. Again, goes back to its initial screening for triage. It's for people that are symptomatic and asymptomatic. That is the most unique characteristic of a COVID detection dog, is using the process and the training aid that's been developed centered around proteins that are associated with the virus. Those allow for direct contact to a person, and that allows for that initial, very fast, very fluid screening and triage. Obviously, if you're not symptomatic, and this was always the challenge when we looked at how we were going to deploy this capability in the field, is what do you do with asymptomatic people? Luckily, the presence of the virus is in the system and already shedding before symptoms may even appear. So the idea here is, by going this route and looking at this solution, we're not necessarily focusing on VOCs. VOCs are volatile organic compounds associated with a metabolic change in a person's body when they have the virus. We're talking specifically about the proteins themselves. So that's been really the most fascinating part. It's safe, efficient, and allows for non-evasive or non-obtrusive, right? So anyone who's ever stood in a queue line or stood in the line for screening before they walked into a facility, a dog can be sort of placed or strategically positioned inside that existing throughput or inside that existing model, and it allows for a dog to make rapid work through a line, through folks coming into a facility or onto an aircraft, and allows for an expeditious way to do that that's really non-obtrusive. And then the last thing, which is the most interesting part, and probably for all of us a little frustrating in some ways, is this is the new normal, right? So screening, mass, depending on where you are in the world or where you are in this country even, state to state, there's varying degrees of how people are approaching their screening and their mitigation and risk strategies. I was talking with someone earlier. I live on the West Coast out in Southern California, and I can tell you the California coast has a completely different perspective on where we are in this sort of pandemic and moving towards a post-pandemic space than other parts of the country. We were joking earlier, if I wasn't wearing my mask or didn't have my vaccination card, someone from California would tackle me and make me go get that done as soon as possible. So the reality is as this landscape is changing and evolving, what we do know is screening for triage and technology is going to be in place. And the reason it's going to be in place, because we are moving past sort of the original 2019 SARS-CoV-2 virus now. The Wuhan virus has now had multiple variations and variants that are continuing, so that we know that this need for a dog in this very particular space centered around quick triage, fast screening, non-obtrusive, can really fit into the aviation and cargo industry, just like it's fitting in the industries across the country that are looking to add a particular tool to their toolbox when it comes to screening. Here are, in my estimations, what I've learned are the 5 components to a successful SARS-CoV-2 screening program. First and foremost is really canine selection, right? That's really the most critical part. All of us in the room are canine professionals. We're in the industry. We're in the cargo industry. We understand that a well-raised, purpose-bred dog in our detection industry is incredibly important. The second thing is really, we focus our effort on our canine training facility, our center of excellence, where we work on this process and the development and refining training technologies, not only centered around SARS and the CoV-2 virus and those canines, but all of our canines, right? That spread across a full spectrum in the industries: cargo, commercial, traditional explosive detection, kinetic dog work, and of course, COVID-19. The third thing is really the thought leadership, being out there, being in the front, in the forefront. We use the term in the Marines my whole life, right? Being a tip of the spear, being out there in front, looking at these solutions and understanding as an organization how to pursue this need and fill this need with a high quality, well-trained and purpose-bred dog. And then really understanding from a technology standpoint and a medical standpoint, using sound practices and principles, right? Having the ability to have access to the right type of training aids, the right type of training environment. Those are critically important. And then lastly, understanding how the commercial deployment strategy works. Where does it fit? Where is it most appropriate? What companies can benefit from a dog that can do initial human body screening for triage and be implemented as a tool in an already market space that's already looking for different solutions, looking to be as streamlined as possible, to move people efficiently, to move cargo efficiently, to move people inside work and sports venues and entertainment venues. It spans all business verticals. And those are really the 5 things. So when you're looking for a program or you're looking at a program that makes sense, you need a well-trained dog. You need a canine center of excellence. You need a place that understands the importance and how this process works. You definitely need the thought leadership. You need to have an organization that's thinking about and living in this environment and doing this type of screening and doing it operationally now as we speak. And of course, have the right science, have the right data, and lastly, have a group that understands the market and what's required, and then what works and what doesn't work. Because every screening situation is different, whether it's at a basketball game, an arena, an airport, a queue line to get onto a flight, or employees coming into your facility. Those are really the critical components to understand. With that, I want to talk a little bit about this philosophy behind a toolbox. So when we talk a lot specific to COVID dogs about SARS-CoV-2 and what a canine toolbox looks like, we're really, again, talking about a mobile detection system, right? A dog is the fastest and most efficient screening method there is. Whether that's explosive mitigation strategies, whether that's in other verticals in the canine industry, but specific to SARS-CoV-2, it is incredibly important to understand. We know that a dog's biosensor technology can be used for initial human body screening for triage because we're doing it actively now, and we know that it works. And we know this screening methodology makes sense. Everybody knows that a dog's olfactory senses are measured in parts per trillion. So you can imagine as your body sheds the virus, sheds viral materials, it is, for a well-trained dog in this particular vertical, very easy to identify. It's not a dog that is focused on multiple different types of odors, right? When you think about an explosive detection dog, you still have to determine on a positive alert what that dog has detected. Again, it goes back to the Mike Larkin joke that's probably not that funny to canine professionals, which is if the dog could talk, they'd be able to tell us that, right? If they could talk and walk, they wouldn't even need a handler. So the idea here is that in this particular case, we know when that well-trained, purpose-bred dog has the right olfactory senses and put in the right set of circumstances, we know what they're detecting. We know what the positive alert is on. So that's really important. And then, of course, the CDC continues to recommend screening as a solution. As it's rapidly evolving, and again, you're thinking about different aspects of masks, no masks, social distancing. We started at 6 feet. In some states, we're at 3 feet. In some states, we're down to 0. We know that with variants of the virus, and we know with vaccination levels where they are, we know that this is still a real incredible threat. and canines are a critical component in the mitigation strategy overall, right? Confucius once said, the only tool in your toolbox is a hammer, you treat every problem like a nail, right? Everyone has probably heard that saying over the years. And what I will tell you is your toolbox, your screening toolbox has to have more than just one tool in it, or every application of the solution is centered around the same sort of, okay, well, I can only treat every problem like a nail. And that's not the direction we chose to go. That's not the direction multiple industries across the country are looking at from a risk mitigation factor. And that's why it's incredibly important to consider the use of an incredible living, breathing biotechnology that's, we talked about man's best friend, and all they need is food, water, and a hug, and a cuddle. That resource, that canine capability is alive and well and real in COVID detection and screening. Now, again, we focus today's talk about mitigation strategies centered around the COVID-19 dogs. I'm sure there's questions. I think I have a few minutes for questions.
So we'll open it up now for Q&A. Anybody like to go first? I will go first. So do you see a use for this in reopening international travel for arriving folks at airports?
I do, because it's a great question, by the way. So the use specific to reopening, especially international travel, right? Coming from different parts, going to or coming from different parts of the world, there's varying degrees of people that are and pandemic levels and people that are infected. So having the ability to have a fast and efficient real-time tool that's posted, just imagine coming off a breezeway out of your flight this morning, and you're walking past a COVID-19 screening dog that's using the protein specific to the virus, not VOCs, not the metabolic change in people's bodies, but specifically the virus. You have a very fast and efficient detection tool. Because again, we know that the virus, you can have the virus even before you have a positive PCR test. And more importantly, you may potentially be asymptomatic and not know at all until you start to demonstrate symptoms. And a dog is an efficient and effective way to do that, coming into the country and going back home or wherever people may be.
First and foremost, I want to thank Ron and Joanna for inviting us here today. This is a great opportunity for not only for us to showcase ourselves, but to sit here with some of our canine professionals in the industry and talk shop, per se. Okay, so today we're going to talk about venue explosive trailing dogs. So what I've done today is instead of me sitting up here as the director of AM Canine, I've actually physically brought our lead for this program, Seth Mayo. So Seth oversees this program from the selection of the dogs to the training of the dogs, as well as to the training of the individuals, and then he oversees the deployment and the operation of these dogs. So I figured it was better to hear it from the horse's mouth as opposed for me, and exactly how we do this. But before we get started, I'm going to go over a little bit about us. Here's our quick agenda. You guys can all see it. Obviously, we're part of Constellus, which is a large conglomerate. It's made up of about 9 different companies. We operate worldwide. It's about a $1.8 billion corporation. And each one of those specialized companies has something that they offer in the security industry, with Canine being one of those. So you're probably asking yourself, yeah, what does that have to do with the canine industry, and what does that have to do with us? Well, it has a lot to do with what we've got to offer now. So with Constellus, we're a worldwide operation with over 20,000 employees. We have training centers all over the world. We have, in the U.S., we have 10 regional offices. We have 4 training centers here located in the U.S. And what that does for us is it brings that back office support. It brings that scalability to programs specifically centered around the cargo arena to where we can scale up to where we need to be. We're already established, and we can lean on Constellus for that backing. Our headquarters right now is in Moyac, North Carolina. We've got a 3,600 acre facility there that we share with our other companies. Canine specific wise, we've got 150 kennels, full vet staff, full vet clinic. We also have x-ray machine, all that stuff. And then we have a 42,000 square foot warehouse that we can mimic for any training venue. Within AM Canine, we're separated into two divisions. We have an international division, and then we have a stateside division or North American division. And then underneath that is the requisite people and personnel. Worldwide, we've probably got about 400 canines deployed. That's definitely shrinking on the overseas events, but we're pushing really hard to bring our folks back that have really spent a lot of time overseas in those real world environments, finding explosives and protecting us from the bad guys. So they're very experienced in that, and we're finding a lot of good experienced guys that want to come back, go to work here in the United States and provide that same service to us here. As an American, that is a little iffy for me to think that terrorism is now coming back to the United States and it's not pushed over, when I say over the pond, but as a canine professional, we welcome the challenge. So with that, I will turn it over to Seth to talk about some more detail on it.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for having me here. They don't let me out a lot, so bear with me with my reading and everything like that. So I'm a canine guy. I'm an instructor. I do operations as well. So what we're going to talk about today is the VET difference. So what is VET? VET is venue explosive trailing. So that means any type of device, object, odor, or anything that could be brought into a venue, conference, or anything like that that is moving. Traditionally, your traditional EDD dogs detect things that are static, such as bags, vehicles, anything that's not moving. The difference between that is everything's going to be moving in and out quickly. You want to flow. So our dogs are trained to locate the odor on a moving object, track to the individual or the source of that odor, and then we'll be able to notify the local authorities. So essentially, if you're familiar with search and rescue, so they do trailing exercises, trail for people. Instead of teaching them to search for people, because people are not productive for this, it's the odor itself which teaches the dogs to trail the odor. So the VET services utilized along with state-of-the-art track system. So at AM Canine, we have a state-of-the-art track system, and how we utilize that with our VET program is we're able to track everything that dog team does throughout the event. So we can track how many people are at that event, how many people are screened, the weather, the temperature, and how that affects the dog's working, so we can make sure those dogs are healthy and operational. As far as how many people are coming in, hot spots where the people are located. So if there's an area where there's more flow of traffic, we can move those teams over and then hit that direction. So at each one of our venue sites, we have dedicated dog teams to each venue with the ability to activate when the client's needs. So one of our biggest thing is each venue operates differently. Just like our cargo areas, they all operate differently. So we want a dedicated team to each venue. So we don't rotate handlers in and out. So each venue has their team. They're familiar with the team. The law enforcement is familiar with their team. The local security is familiar with the team. So in an event that something does happen, we're all on the same page. There's no lax in the communication. That way we can prevent anything from happening. That's one of our big beliefs with that. And then we have a complete third-party nationally recognized certification. We have no members that are on the board of that certification. No one's a master trainer or anything like that. So our certifications are unbiased, and they fail, they pass. So pricing that allows the venue to big or small with the ability to add additional protection to their clients and fans. So because we're such a big company, we do not have, we have a competitive pricing model. So we can fluctuate our price to meet any need, whether the client's big or small. That's one of our big selling points. So we believe that every venue needs this type of service there. So we make sure we do our part to provide those services. So the heart of our operations. So from our canine, it starts from our selection. So we take everything from flop-eared dogs, which is your sporting, your labs, your pointers. Then we also do shepherds, mals, anything like that. They go through a strict procurement process where we test their environmentals, their workability, their social, everything that could be presented for in the operational environment. Typically, the ages range from 1 to 2 years, and they go through 12 weeks of imprinting and operational training. Then it goes to our handler. So once that dog has completed their certificate or their initial training, we bring in the handler. Our handler experience varies from military, law enforcement, or any hostile environment. But Constellas is a company of opportunity. We believe, that everyone deserves the opportunity to work with dogs. We all started at some point. We worked into that role. It's a long process, but we want to provide the opportunity to anybody. So someone with a passion, a high drive mentality that wants to work with dogs, we provide them additional training. We go over everything from principles of conditioning, you name it, all the way up to, the operational deployments. And then our goal is to cycle our handlers overseas that have been working for us for years back home. We want to provide the opportunity to be with their families, be in the area where they're not in such a hostile environment once they decide to come back. So once the team is paired, they go through 6 to 10 weeks of pairing and training. We go over 23 focus instructions. They receive the NAPA North American Police Working Dog Association certification. And again, and that is a complete third-party certification. So kind of the benefits, the advantage of the VET, our flexibility, we're able to provide you whatever you need. Fast mobilization approach, established SOPs, and a community of operations. So we're an established company. We have multiple dogs all over the United States, varying from cargo, the VET program. So we have an intricate web of how we operate. Our partnerships with our extension of your team. So we believe one team, one fight. We work with you. We make sure all your needs are met, and we can provide that service to you. Instant strategy of value and respect and market credibility. We're AM Canine. We've been doing this since 2003. We have a great market credibility. We provide canines everywhere from Baghdad to the stateside. So we have that credibility. Straightforward and easy to work with. I can't tell you how many times, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock in the morning, someone call, hey, I need this right here. We're going to work and make sure you get what you need. We are a pretty much 7-day-a-week job, 60 to 80 hours a week to make sure all our clients are provided what they need. Professionals of the field, level of experience. So at our facility, we have everything ranging from law enforcement, Marines, Air Force, you name it. We have so many different levels of experience that we put into one thing. So you don't just get one picture. We give you a big picture of everything that could possibly, and then we pass that training off into our dogs. Everything that can be provided for that. Level of efficiency, tracking capabilities. So we have our state-of-the-art tracking, kind of recapping on that. And we use that system along with our VET system. And our dedicated security and safety. That is our priority. That's what we're here for. That's what we want to do. We want to keep people safe. Any questions?
Hey, Seth. So this is Ron for everyone who can't see online. So I have a question. Can you clarify or kind of go into a little bit more detail about how long it takes to prep a team for stand-up, specifically, the ranges in times it can take based off of some of the different variations?
Absolutely. So it all depends on the level of handler experience, whether they operated on a type of mobile odor detection, something like that. With no one with the experience, typically it goes from about 6 to 8 weeks up to 12. With someone that's done this type of searching before, it's usually about 4 weeks, but it all just depends because we're not going to send someone a certification that's not prepared. But our main goal is around 6 to 8 weeks with this.
Real quick, Seth. So in doing this in venues with the public, how do you guys approach to put them at ease?
As far as, say that one more time.
So the people are in a venue, et cetera, and with a dog walking around, not every person is a dog person.
Right.
So are your handlers also trained to interact with the public to put them at ease?
Because our canine capabilities are able to detect odors from a good distance, the dogs don't have to be right up on the people. So, and usually there's large groups of people. We're 6 to 12 feet back from those people, so they don't even know we're there. And so as a large group comes in, we come in behind downwind, and then we search them. So we really don't have to intervene with them much, but there is someone that has a fear of dogs. We'll let them go through, and then we'll make sure we scan them, when they're well on through, or let them go through before we hit them.
Any other questions? All right, we'll take a break and reconvene at 1 o'clock for our aviation.
My name is Mike Caldwell, Senior Director at SOC. I work largely in the business development. As I listen to everyone, there's a ton of business opportunities to be discussed. There just are. And the divide and conquer, I don't think is going to work on this TSA thing. It's very complicated. It looks very big. It looks very clunky. And there's a lot of room for error, and there's a lot of room probably for some improvement or whatever. I'm going to be followed by Dave Dollar, who's really going to talk about the subject. Joanne asked me to provide the larger group a little bit more information about SOC, who we are, and kind of where we come from and what we do. So there was a briefing that was set up earlier where I can just kind of just go at it. It was a large briefing we sent, and but in the interest of time, I'll just kind of go because these are our elevator speeches, right? For those of you that have an elevator speech, we have ours too. So we come up with our new briefing. I have a copy of this, and then once if you want it, I have some printed copies I brought. Or if Joanne can provide the list of attendees, we can also mail this out, and you can look at it. So we'll just kind of stay topically. So SOC is the government services arm of our larger parent company, a company called Day & Zimmerman out of Philadelphia. Day & Zimmerman as a whole has about 43,000 employees. Well, okay. And away we go. Is it that one? Yeah. So Day & Zimmerman, so about 2.4 billion revenue. The number is 40,000. It fluctuates quite a bit. It's mathematical across about 150 different locations. The company's been around since 1901. It's one of the largest owned family businesses in the country. We do a lot of great work, a lot of great things. This is our leadership team. We say the who's who in the zoo. And there's Mike Jenkins. You can see on the top left of there is the Senior Vice President, oversees the Canine enterprise and works closely with Dave and Tim Crawford, my colleagues here. Our mission and our core competencies, SOC as government services, our core competency is security in all different forms and fashion. Within SOC, we do the architecture and engineering. We have an architecture and engineering firm called Mason and Hanger. They're the oldest A&E firm in the country. They do great work. They design the Marine Corps Museum. They design embassies all over the world. They do a lot of really cool things, and their portfolio is fantastic. And there are a lot of nice people down in Richmond, Virginia. Our integrated security solutions is what I'll hit a little bit more here. Operations and maintenance. We run a lot of different GOCO facility, government-owned, contractor-operated. One of those facilities is the Hawthorne Army Depot. It's the largest storage and demill facility in the world. And they do a lot of fun things. There's about 4,400 bunkers with explosives there with about 30 million square foot of storage. So you can imagine how big that place is. And that's in Nevada, just a little bit south of Fallon, where their Top Gun school is. Workforce and cleared staffing solutions is something that we also do. And this is kind of what we call our cleared for weird guys and gals that work on technology programs, and they do a lot of IT work and a lot of those types of things. I'm not going to get into all the weeds here. Within our O&M, we do the traditional base operation services. We do the operations and maintenance. We do also, there's an MRO capability, which is the maintenance, repair, and overhaul capability on vehicles, vertical or on aircraft that are rotor and fixed wing. And there's a lot of different airframes that they work on with that. Some of our clients that you can see just by their logos, we can see who those are. It's kind of the same cast of characters there. The integrated security solution. So, and I'm not going to steal any of Dave's thunder other than to say that our Canine facility is in Martinsburg, West Virginia. It's a 40,000 square foot facility there. When I visited the first time when I started there, I went in and I made some observations. It's a fantastic facility. It's very clean. Very professionally ran. There's a lot of things going on in there. It doesn't smell like a kennel. I thought all that was kind of, when they're like, hey, let's go to the Canine Center, I was like, I don't know, I might be busy, but I'm glad I did. It's a really cool place. And it's guys like all of you that do those nice things. It's awesome. So as part of our security, and then I'll kind of pick up the pace a little bit, we're a WIPS 3 Prime. Worldwide Protective Services. We run the Baghdad Embassy, we run the Jerusalem Embassy, we run the Central African Republic, and then there's a whole host of other embassies that are being bid on as we speak, quite literally. We also have a number of different contract vehicles within Afghanistan, within Iraq. The Triple S is a contract vehicle that we're a prime on. Also, the Guardian platform is a prime. So we can make those available from time to time as people need special things. We also have a special programs work that we have there. That's, one of those that you don't really talk about, but there's a lot of capability and a lot of capacity built into that as well. We are part of the Y-12 Pantex joint venture. We run certain parts of that facility and also some of our DOE facilities like NNSS out north of Las Vegas near Mercury. That's also a fun place if you're into those type of fun places. Continuing on, and when we stop, if there's any questions I can answer, I'm happy to do that, but I just wanted to take 10 minutes and kind of flip through this. We have our cyber capability. The folks down in Florida, we have done a couple of acquisitions where we bought companies with certain capability, both offensive and defensive capability, so it fits in. And as you can see, the different things that we work on, here's more of the cleared staffing, the type of folks that we put in there. The cleared for weird again, and that's linked to most of the clearances that you have to do some of the work that you can imagine in and around Chantilly, in and around Reston, Virginia, in and around all the places that are DC, and I think we pretty much know what those are. They do a lot. They do an absolute lot of work, and that's more to the cleared staffing solutions, the architecture and engineering, and that's pretty much the full service. They don't do the build construction, but they do all of the A&E work that's traditional, a lot within the State Department for OBO and overseas building operations. And so, I was going to keep clicking on. There's us, the three of us that came here today. That's the only thing that I did to that whole slide was put our names in there. So the company does pretty well with that. If there's any questions, I appreciate it. If not, I'll let Dave get to what you guys really wanted to hear.
I'll keep this very brief. Beyond 3PK9. I guess it was about, well, first I'd like to thank Joanna and Ron for putting this on. It's been a great opportunity, and I think bringing everybody together is an excellent thought. So beyond 3PK9, about a year and a half ago, the executive leadership of Dan Zimmerman and SOC made the decision to go in to 3PK9. We're going in. That was the message that my director and I heard at the Canine Training Center. We're going in. So as soon as I heard that, I remembered a commercial airplane flight that I had years ago when I was skiing, young enough to ski in Colorado. And we were coming into Stapleton International Airport. And I don't know if you've been to that part of the country during the wintertime, but the Chinook winds and the snowstorms are incredible. And the aircraft was in a holding pattern over Stapleton International Airport. And everyone was a little bit nervous. I had a window seat. I could look out and see just everything boiling there below. And as we dropped down in the pattern to land the aircraft, as soon as we entered the storm, the pilot got on the PA and he said, "We're going in." And I didn't know if he meant we're going in or we're going in, So anyway, we're involved with 3PK9. The canines that we have at the training center have been involved in government services, as I mentioned earlier. They were protecting the U.S. Embassy in Baghdad. We have 40 of them. They're highly trained on numerous explosive odors, and they're not the typical canine. That means that they're trained not only to search ULDs and cargo, they're also trained to search vehicles. They're trained to search rooms such as the one that we're in. They're trained to search outside in open areas. They are trained to search parcels. They're trained to search people. So there are a variety of different opportunities that we have that we're going to offer to our clients as additional services that we can do for them other than 3PK9. Because the clients have facilities, CCSFs, or the airlines have facilities, and perhaps they need to have personnel search when they come to work, or vehicle search. We will have dual certifications with our dogs, not only the certification required for the 3P Canine, but we'll also have a nationally recognized police association to certify our dogs, our single-purpose explosive detector dogs, to be able to do functions that are additional to what it is that the clients would like. So I just wanted to, to mention that, underscore that we're trying to work collaboratively with clients, with everybody in this room. And that is probably the most important message here, is that this is new. It's going to take years for the program to really stabilize. But if we keep focused on that, we'll be doing fine. Thank you very much.
All right. So for everyone online who's watching this afterwards on a recorded, if you could share this video, especially if it affects you in the aviation industry or in the canine industry, share it with your general canine partners or associated companies as well, because we really want to get the word out, not just about the aviation industry and the effects that canines have, but also in the general commercial industry and the capabilities that canines have to make America safer. Ranging from person-born to person detection to COVID-19. There's such a large market for canine out there, not as a sale, but as a capability. We want this to get out to the general public as well as the commercial and industrial industries. So, but thanks everyone for joining in today, both here in person and online. And thank you, Joanna, for setting all of this up for us here, and everyone who's participated.